I'm glad you're still watching K24's New Dawn. My name is Joel Church, and today we focus on the state of the nation. Once again in studio, I'm joined by Honorable James Gakuya, Chair of the Trade Committee of the National Assembly, also Member of Parliament, Embakasi North. Thank you so much for getting time, Mheshimiwa.
Thank you. Thank you.
Also, Honorable Dr. Daniel Manduku, MP Nyaribari Masaba. Thank you so much, Daktari.
Thank you,
for getting time.
And good morning, viewers.
And Senator Karungo Thangwa, Kiambu Senator. Thank you so much for getting time this morning.
You forgot to say I'm also Chairman, Roads, Transportation and Housing.
Well, committee at the Senate.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning too.
Yeah. For now,
well,
before we
are the whip.
Before you're whipped. So there are fears that you're likely to lose your positions as chair.
We are expecting anything.
Yeah.
You too, Mheshimiwa Thangwa?
Yeah, we are ready for anything.
Lucky for me, I'm chairman of nothing except my house.
So your position is likely to go.
You know, there have been threats here and there that if we don't toe the line, we are going to be whipped. But we are ready, you know, because that's what happens.
Consequences.
Those are the consequences of standing for justice. So if it happens, it happens.
So you too, Mheshimiwa, Trade Committee Chair?
No, me I don't care.
The position is likely to go.
I don't care. Me I die for a cause.
Well, we begin with this particular story that perhaps has not been focused on pretty much, where members of the public are now expected to submit their final views on the extension of term limits for the president and elected leaders on Friday, 25th October, that is tomorrow, before the Senate's Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs amid a public uproar over the proposal. This comes even as Kiambu Senator Karungo Thangwa has opposed the amendment bill, countering it with the proposal to replace the current limit with a 4-year term limit.
At a time when the Kenya Kwanza administration continues to face criticism over failure to implement key pre-election promises, with the economic situation taking a turn for the worst, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2024 seeking to extend term limits has been met with resistance, not only from the public but also from a section of the political class. The bill, which has been undergoing public participation, with the last day to submit views set for Friday, 25th of October, seeks to increase the number of years in office for the president and other elected leaders from 5 to 7. The bill further proposes to amend Article 151 of the Constitution by inserting a subsection 151A to create the office of the Prime Minister, who shall be appointed by the President-elect. The Prime Minister will be the leader of the majority party or the largest coalition in Parliament. While rubbishing the proposal sponsored by his counterpart to extend term limits, Kiambu Senator Karungo Thangwa argues that the proposal is a threat to democracy and poses a risk of dictatorship.
Extending term limits undermines the very foundation of accountability. Looking at the person who proposed this amendment, the 7-year term, looking at where he comes from, looking at how he voted in the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua, where he voted that Gachagua should go home. This 7-year term proposal is a grand scheme for people to retain power.
The vocal first-time senator was skeptical of the bill, noting that not only does it heighten political temperatures, but it could also be a distraction from other key pressing issues in the country.
The competitive nature of our politics often leads to heightened tensions during election periods. A longer term could exacerbate feelings of disenfranchisement among citizens if they cannot vote out unpopular leaders. This amendment may serve as a diversion from pressing national issues such as economic challenges and governance failures.
The Amendment Bill 2024, sponsored by Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei, has been termed as one that could erode the democratic gains made by the country. Thangwa says he has since written to the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the Senate, voicing his opposition to the amendment. While opposing the bid to extend the term limits, Thangwa, who has in recent days slammed President Ruto's administration, is now proposing 4-year term limits. According to him, the reduction in the number of years from 5 to 4 will enhance accountability, prevent power consolidation and protect democracy.
I'm proposing a 4-year term limit. A 4-year term empowers citizens to hold their leaders accountable more frequently. Voters deserve the right to evaluate their representatives and make necessary changes based on performance.
With the National Assembly and the Senate on the spot over their decision-making in recent weeks, will the Senate put the views of Kenyans into consideration?
So, as a Kenyan, by tomorrow, being 25th on a Friday, you should have submitted at least your views on the extension of the term limits. So just to begin with you, Honorable Daniel Manduku, Nyaribari Masaba, Member of Parliament. This bill, first of all, has come at a time that there is a broad-based government. It touches also on the creation of a position of the Prime Minister. The timeline of this bill being at the Senate, also the fact that Rigathi Gachagua was impeached during this broad-based period. Is this a plot, to create position for leaders or to have them retain power for long?
Thank you, Joel, for the question. I think we are being suspicious, or we are seeing lots of fire where there's not even smoke. Why am I saying this? I know that during the National Dialogue Committee report, there was a proposal to increase the term limits for the senators. And I think the honorable member who has proposed the amendments to all term limits must have borrowed that and in his own wisdom tried to expand it to include the other elective arms. Let me say this, Joel. The issue of term limits has always been discussed in many, many countries. In fact, 30 years ago, the Americans wanted to limit the terms for their senators and their members of the House of Representatives. But they could not marshal enough numbers required in their constitution to effect those term limits. Now, back here in Kenya, I'm one person who is not worried because this matter has not come to the Orange Democratic Movement through our parliamentary group. It has not even come to any of our committees in the National Assembly. And Kenyans should sit pretty, knowing that touching on term limits will effectively alter the structure of government and therefore must be subjected to a referendum, which I know Kenyans will oppose to the last man. Personally, as Member of Parliament for Nyaribari Masaba, I don't support the extension of term limits.
So you're contented with the 5 years?
I am contented with 5 years, even if it was 4 years as Honorable Thangwa proposed. I would be very happy. Because why? Term limits first make us more accountable. When we know that we have a certain short time, it makes us very responsive to the needs of our constituents and our nation. And also, shorter cycles ensures that you bring new expertise every so often. And so I would be opposed to this motion if it came to the House, regardless of what my party leader advises. Thank you.
Honorable James Gakuya, it's interesting that Parliament is now considered as a rubber stamp, and on the backdrop of Gachagua's impeachment motion sailing through, and now this proposal being brought forth, fears are there that, considering this is not a first attempt to even bring this conversation, similar to Gachagua's matter, it began as rumors that he would be impeached at some point. And today, we're talking about the impeached Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. On the conversation on the term limit, it began with the Fafi Member of Parliament, Jacob Sala. President William Ruto came to the defense of that. They said maybe it was brought to test the waters. This time round on this one, the president is silent, similar to how he is silent on the Gachagua's impeachment. What do you have to say about this?
Thank you, Joe. Allow me to salute viewers wherever they are watching us from this morning. And coming to the matter on the table, and especially the extension of term limit. what I would like to say as a registrator is that one, the only cure that may stop this process is people of Kenya. The Kenyan citizen, because I am overseeing a situation where the National Assembly will be overrided, and most likely the numbers will be aligned. As much as Raila Odinga will be in the support of this particular motion, this motion most likely is going to have to attain numbers. That the threshold of two to that. The same case will apply to the Senate, because it's have arrived a time when the members are not voting from their own conscience, and they are voting from outside pressure. And if this will be the same case, when most likely the head of state will be silent on it, as much as right now he's silent on it, it means he has an approval of it silently. And if he means solid, he might use the same route he has used to fire his deputy. And this will be so nasty that it might be unstoppable. The beauty of it is that, in fact, the Constitution is very clear about how to change government structure. And it has envisaged that before you change any structure of the government, the people have the final say. And therefore, no parliamentary act cannot pass the threshold. And therefore, the referendum is a must. And this is only where maybe Kenyans may be lucky. But it may be also unfortunate, even at the final whistle of referendum. Because we have witnessed a referendum in this country where we had bananas and oranges. And finally we oversaw what transpired. At some point, Kenyans were saying, if Raila have read it, then there is no business to read it. It is not good for us. And therefore, if this trap is the same trap that Kenyans are going to adopt, then they will, they may take this country to the highness. Because one, why do we really, at this point in time, do you want to extend term of Parliament, considering that for the whole scope since independence, this country has been operating well with the 5-year term. And the 5-year term of a president, why do we want to now, at this point in time, want to purge our constitution and create such a rule? I would say, personally, I oppose it in the highest order. And I would urge my parliamentarians in this one, because already when the matter is now in the public perception, it tells that it has entered its normal process and it's unstoppable. And therefore, if it cannot attain the threshold in the Parliament and Senate, it will stop there. But if it finds itself and the lights of the day, then it tells you that in fact it will find the people down there, and the competition might be different from what we may view, depending on how the political situation is currently. So it is 50-50 that it might fail, or probably by good luck, it may fail.
Honorable Karungo Thangwa, you're a close ally of Rigathi Gachagua, the impeached deputy president. And in his own words, no bill or motion will see the light of the day, especially from the ruling party, without President William Ruto's nod. You know, Mwengi Mutuse tabled a motion seeking the ouster of the second in command. Many opine that he was just a proxy move of the motion. Here, we no longer have a conversation outside Parliament on the extension of the term limits. It's already a bill. In fact, by tomorrow, Kenyans need to have participated on this process. Is this President William Ruto seeking to stay in office longer?
Thank you very much, Chacha, and good morning to viewers, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here. You know, yesterday, as I was giving my proposal that I would suggest a 4-year term, was because a colleague of mine has proposed a 7-year term. And it has been said here, a 7-year term was a proposal that is in NADCO report. If you read the NADCO report, it was proposed, and that was in agreement of Raila Odinga, President Ruto, and all the others, that a term should be increased to 7 years, but that of the Senate. But the senator who has now brought this has included every other person. This is not to mean that it is coming from nowhere. It is a premeditated plan that people would want to clinch to power. And the reason why I'm saying that is because they have realized that 2027 is going to be hard for most of us, and especially those who voted yes for the finance bill, especially those who voted yes to impeach Rigathi Gachagua. 2027, they might not see the light of day. So what the plan is to extend the term so that they can retain power, because they know 2027 they are not coming back. So when Kenyans see this kind of plan, they should be worried, because we have lost parliament, and of late we have lost the Senate. Kenyans had actually thought that the Senate, as the upper house is supposed to be, could have redeemed the image of the legislature. But from how we handled the issue of the impeachment of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, now a lot is left to be desired of the Senate, because everybody could see that there is no case here. We did not do proper investigation. And remember, the reason why the motion comes to the Senate is because, one, we are supposed to form a committee of 11 to do investigation. Or we go to the plenary way, which we did, which does not take the mandate of investigation. But did we investigate? No, we didn't. We only sat down to listen to the stories from both sides. If we hear somebody says, Rigathi Gachagua has 17 companies, what have they done? Oh, I'm just thinking one of them is used to launder money. Can we see the bank statement? We did not ask for that. So what I'm trying to say is that, can you imagine someone is suggesting that we stay the way we are for another 7 years? Can you tolerate this governance or the shenanigans that are happening for another 1 year, leave alone the 7 years that somebody is proposing? So I ask Kenyans to come out and oppose this move. I know the Senate has given Kenyans up to Friday to come up and give their opinion, but does it matter? Will we listen to the people? We moved around and across the country asking people whether Rigathi should be impeached. Did you even see those results feature anywhere in the deliberations? Nowhere. So even on this one, Kenyans are just being taken for a ride. It does not mean that you are told to come tomorrow and give your views, that is going to be followed. We have seen that whatever the president wants passed by parliament, it will be. It will be. Whether it is going to cost the votes of those who are passing it, is going to happen. Because if you look at the finance bill, what happened to at the parliament? They passed the finance bill when maandamano and demos and protests were happening, even to the doorstep of parliament. But they had to pass it. It only took the intervention of the president to not assent to the bill. So this is the time that Kenyans, if you have ever said you will stand up for your country, this is the time. This is the time.
Honorable Manduko, at some point you wanted Parliament to be dismissed.
I think,
that was
I think I'm on
purely
record.
because
I'm on record because at that time I felt that the people no longer trusted us.
now that the people no longer trust you, on the issue of the public participation, you know, the fact that then Parliament did not listen to the public views, on, especially on the finance bill of 2024, this time round we have, or maybe the Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei has brought a sweetener that is also touching on you as parliamentarians, increasing your term limits. It's not only for the president, but also for you. Maybe, similar to how government will have increased taxes, maybe also your salary should have increased. Maybe that's being put as a sweetener. In this case, you once held a position, and maybe you still, that Parliament should be dismissed. How then are we having the same Parliament, putting into consideration the views of the public on the extension of also their, term limits?
Let me say, Joel, that this matter has not come to the National Assembly. It is still currently with the Senate, where Honorable Thangwa sits. But having said that, let me repeat that my views on the parliamentary independence still hold. I have not changed that. And I think I don't need to belabor that fact. But then we're in a situation where people believe that we members of parliament are selfish by nature, and they suspect that we will easily approve or agree to the extension of our term limits. But I think on this matter, even reasonable members of parliament, whom I believe most of my colleagues are, will see that the public mood does not entertain that. And I think many members would rather stick to their 5-year mandate. And as Thangwa says, we are sure that in 2027, some of us will still come back, regardless of whether we voted yes or yes. It's ironical that those who voted yes, like for the finance bill, are the ones now calling us black. It's a case of the kettle calling the pot black, because we voted no for the finance bill. But having said that,
maybe
Joel,
because Raila Odinga was not part of the broad-based government. So come 2025,
the fact
we'll
that
also be voting no.
the fact that some members of my party are in government does not take away our independent thinking for some of us.
So the opposition is still strong, the minority that is.
We believe that even in a minority, we still stand for reason. Especially myself, I cannot be swayed by any enticement, including the extension of my term limit.
Honorable Gakuya, the intrigue of Raila Odinga now being part of the broad-based government, and how that consequently affects the independence of Parliament, the views of members of the public are being collected. I'm not sure whether that reflected, maybe just on you, Honorable Manduku. What did the constituents of Nyarebari Masaba tell you on the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua?
Let me put it on record, and I have always said it before. The impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua was a political process.
So what did your constituents actually tell you? You asked him?
My constituents, as per the forms that were circulated, confirmed that they wanted him impeached.
Well, Honorable Gakuya,
but
and you followed that?
Honorable Thangwa talks about investigation and all those things. Those are very good theoretical stories. Impeachment is political. You don't have to have reason beyond doubt. You don't have to even have what we call probability or balance of probability.
So are you citing your reason for supporting the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua as a political process, yes, or as
I'm on record? The deputy, my party position was that we vote yes to his impeachment.
That reflected also the views of Kenyans
that is what we did
in the parliament.
Yes.
Honorable Gakuya, on public participation, especially on this one, there was a spirited effort to ensure that that of Rigathi Gachagua is done at least in every county, with forms being circulated. On this one, there's no even translation of the same.
Joe, let me say, as much as public participation is concerned, one I would want to be very clear on this, that the parliament, and especially the National Assembly, must have goodwill to have this law in place. And I remember very well that in the last parliament, under the Committee of Broadcasting, this law was drafted to the letter. And the law and the document find its way to the National Assembly for debate. But there was a deliberate move to make sure that that bill was never given as light of the day to the floor of the House. And therefore, those who dealt with what we call parliamentary business, they made sure that it is locked out. And you know, what happens in the calendar of the parliament is that after an exit of a parliament of that particular term, then any other bill flops. So in this particular case, unless that bill is revived, you cannot say that that bill is anywhere awaiting any direction. So it's a day as good as dead as done. Coming to the manner in which the public participation is being handled. In the case of Gachagua, there was an order by Kirinyaga Court that the time that was given by the National Assembly for a county one center, it was expanded and 1 day was extended to make sure that this particular exercise should take place at every level of constituency. And the circular was given out by the clerk of the National Assembly that all the offices of CDF should be opened in the second day. But note this, it was not even half of the constituencies that were open in that second day. So by that nature itself, the law was not followed. But at the end of the day, we wait to see how the court will pronounce itself as much as that process of public participation is concerned, and that particular order was executed, and how they interpret the execution of that particular order. As we stand today, yesterday, the day before yesterday, there was a ruling of the housing levy, which the 3 bench judges were very clear that the process was in order, and therefore the house levy is admissible. In this case, they followed, they made their conclusion by the process of the public participation. And they concluded that both National Assembly and the Senate followed the law. And therefore, public was given a good time to participate. And they ruled at the end that it was not necessary for the public participation to be done in the whole scope of 7 number of counties. In this case, they decided that those who had participated represented the people. So in this case, I would tell you, maybe that process of public participation, you require to have at least a particular law which will be giving thresholds. And without that in place, I am not finding it as a refuge for anybody to think that, in fact, is where you can anchor yourself to have your justice.
Well, when you come back after the break, I'll be engaging Honorable Karungo Odangwa on whether we have a lacuna in the law, especially on the issue of public participation. We were touching on the proposal to increase the term limit from 5 years to 7 years. I invite you in this conversation of our social media platforms at K24 TV, at Joel Chasha, as well on SMS, and WhatsApp numbers on the bottom of your screens. I'll be sampling some of your feedback when we come back after this short commercial break.
When it's a Saturday,